Hi there, smart driver, talking to you about defensive driving so that your ride is uneventful and somewhat boring. Yes, uneventful and somewhat boring, because if you have the correct defensive driving strategies in place, there's not going to be any emergency going on most of the time when you're driving. Defensive driving, minimum safe distance between your vehicle and other vehicles on the roadway. Shoulder checking, ABS, always be scanning. We come back to this again and again and again. Shoulder check, shoulder check, shoulder check, because you're moving your head and you're looking and you're scanning and you're observing and tracking and mapping road users on the roadway. Shoulder checking is the most critical skill that you can put in place, the most critical driving habit that you can put in place to keep yourself safe. And it is important for new drivers. And I have had smart drivers come back over the years and say to me, it's dangerous. You can adjust your mirrors. I have blind spot detectors. I have convex mirrors. They don't have to shoulder check. All of that is butkus. All of that is horsepucky, and it's simply flat out wrong. Flat out wrong. You need to shoulder check. You need to move your head. And again, I have a go at driving examiners, driving instructors that have mirrors in their car, and they're like, what are the mirrors for? Oh, I'm looking to watch their eyes. Well, you cannot drive a car. You physically cannot drive a car by simply moving your eyes. Your eyes do not move enough in your head to be able to scan and see into the area, the blind areas around your car, and drive safely. You must shoulder check when you're driving to keep yourself safe and prevent being involved in a crash when you're driving. Two good resources to have a look at. Look at the podcast for new drivers, defensive driving. For those of you who just got your license, have a look at that on the podcast, and as well some car and truck crashes. And again, these happen at the freeways on intersections. And you're going to say, well, there aren't any intersections on freeways. If it's a true freeway, that's true. There aren't any intersections on freeways. However, on ramps, exit ramps, mostly exit ramps is where you're going to get into trouble on freeways and interstates. So when you're driving on the freeway, driving on the interstate, be looking far down the road, mapping and scanning and checking to see whether cars are coming out onto the highway. And if they are, slow down, let them merge out. And when I say slow down, I don't mean like 30 miles an hour. I'm talking 2 or 3 miles an hour. Or move over into the other lane to let them come on to the highway safely to get yourself home safely, because it's not a battleground, right? We want to get home safe. What is defensive driving? Driving in a manner that allows you to compensate for the errors of yourself and the errors of other on the roadway, because everybody's going to make mistakes when you're driving. It's not just you, and it's not just the other people. But part of social driving is we like to police other people on the roadway. Oh, you're a dummy, you're driving too slow. You dummy, you don't know how to make a left-hand turn. You didn't go when the gap presented itself. Oh my God, could you drive any slower? Ah! And then the person, as you know, that's going faster than you is a bonehead, and the person going slower than you is a crackhead. So, this is what's going on in terms of driving. Creating conditions that will allow you to mitigate the risks associated with driving. This is what you want to do. What is defensive driving? That's what it is. You're creating habits that are going to mitigate the risks associated with driving and to reduce the number of traffic crashes that you could potentially be in. This is why we want to put in skills and habits that are going to keep us safe and let us get home safe. Smarter defensive driving consists of these four principles, but it also defines the problem of driving and what you're up against when you're driving, which is smarter defensive driving. The problem you're up against is social driving, okay? The way that people drive after they get their license. And I was just talking about policing the actions of other drivers. If they're doing something against the law, you're going to honk at them, you're going to give them the finger, you're going to get angry, you're going to tailgate them, and all the other things that people do to communicate that they are dissatisfied with the way that you are driving on the roadways. So the skills and habits that you can create and put in place that will keep you safe are speed management, space management, observation, and communication. We already talked about space management, 3 to 4 second following distance, staying back 1 vehicle length from the vehicles in front when you're coming to a stop or slowing down. Space management, or speed management rather, the flow of traffic or posted speed limit, whichever is less. And this is particularly important for the purposes of a driver's test. Now, after you get your driver's license, I do advocate that you keep up with the flow of traffic to remain predictable on the roadways. Communication, communicating effectively. The number one way that we communicate with other traffic is the position of the vehicle on the roadway or its speed and changes in speed. All this will communicate intent of other road users and drivers on the roadway. Observation, looking far down the road, mapping and tracking other road users, checking your mirrors every 10 to 15 seconds, looking at your instrument panel, seeing a cyclist as you're approaching an intersection where you're going to make a right-hand turn, and then mapping and tracking that road user by shoulder checking and looking into the blind areas around your vehicle. Space management, minimum safe distance. And we use the term minimum safe distance because it's, nuclear bombs, right? You have to be minimum safe distance from the bomb. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt. You're going to be potentially collateral damage, right? It's the same thing with car wrecks. Minimum safe distance between other vehicles, road users, fixed objects on the roadway so that you don't crash into them, all right? You can always manage space in front of your vehicle. And drivers come back to me over the years and they say, well, if I leave space in front of my vehicle, people are going to cut in. Well, I've been leaving space in front of my vehicle forever, and it's only every now and again that somebody cuts in front of my vehicle. Not very often. And if they do, you just say, oh, go and have your crash somewhere else, and then you just reclaim your space in front and drive. So it's boring. So it's uneventful, because if it's boring and uneventful, you're doing your job as a defensive driving, because driving should not be exciting all the time. We're not race car drivers. We're not F1 Formula car drivers. That's not what the roadway is about. If you want to do that, go on a track and do it there. Space buys you time, time buys you options, options prevent crashes. This is why we want to maintain space in front of our vehicle so we can respond accordingly to what's going on in the environment. We want to move from being reactionary and retaliatory drivers. So reaction, we're reacting to what's going on in the driving environment, and we're being retaliatory. If somebody's going too slow, we're going to tailgate them and we're going to tell them that they're going too slow. We want to be proactive. We want to create driving conditions that will keep us safe most of the time, and we want to reduce and mitigate the risks associated with driving. This is what we want to do by becoming proactive and predictable on the roadways. Stopping in traffic one vehicle length back. There's several reasons for doing this. It prevents its defensive posturing against being rear-ended. It allows you, if you change your mind, you can move out and around the vehicles in front of you. Cars, if the car in front of you rolls back, most of the world outside of North America drive manual transmissions. So if the person is not taught properly and they're doing that gas thing first and then the clutch and they roll backwards, they're not going to roll into you. And then finally, in some sort of utopian world in which we live, if everybody stayed back one vehicle length, the entire pack of cars waiting at the traffic light to take off could move off together, and it wouldn't be one car go and the next car go and the next car goes, okay? The whole pack could move off together. But I live in some sort of driving utopia world that's probably not ever going to happen. When out on the highways to keep yourself safe, again, keep your 3 to 4 second following distance. And of course, the 3 to 4 second following distance is under ideal driving conditions. Okay, if road conditions deteriorate, it starts raining, it's snowing, traffic gets heavy, then you want to increase that following distance in front of your vehicle. Now, out on the roadways, on the highways, on the interstates, you want to drive in the clusters between the vehicles to keep yourself safe. So figure out where the clusters are, and you'll be able to see them because it's a group of vehicles driving together. You want to drive in the spaces between those clusters. And sometimes it's just a matter of slowing down a couple of miles an hour and letting the cluster go ahead, and then you sit in the middle, okay? And if you're on the speed limit or a couple of miles above the speed limit, most places the flow of traffic is going to be 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit or 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit, because most police officers will not pull you over if you are in the pack, okay? As Tim says, the nail that sticks up is the one that gets hammered down. So the car in the front of the pack that's going like a crazy bat out of hell, or the one in the back of the pack that's going crazy bat out of hell that's 30 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, those are the cars that are going to get picked off and get traffic tickets. So keep that in mind if you decide that you want to speed. Who's driving? Following too close. If you were following too close, you are not in control of your vehicle. The driver in front of you is in control of your vehicle, and now you're a reactionary driver. You're not responding to what's going on in the driving environment, because we come back to the saying again, space buys you time, time buys you options, options prevent crashes. If you have predictable actions according to rules and culture of the road, we're going to significantly reduce traffic crashes on our roadway. And there's all kinds of enforcement out on the roadways, automated enforcement. This is a big debate right now in the province of Ontario with automated enforcement with red light cameras and speed cameras. But it's a very debatable political topic in terms of automated enforcement, and people are reluctant to have automated, rigid enforcement such as traffic cameras and red light or speed cameras. Think about that in terms of predictable driving and traffic safety and whatnot. And it's actually interesting. We can answer that question right in the comments. For those of you now on the live stream or those watching on the replay, leave a comment down there whether you think automated enforcement, red light cameras and speed cameras, whether they are a money grab to fill the political coffers, or they actually do increase safety. And be interested to hear what you have to say about that. So leave us a comment there about that. Predicting traffic patterns in the summertime, in the wintertime, there are going to be different traffic patterns because there are going to be different kinds of vehicles on the roadway. In the summertime, you have many more vulnerable road users on the roadway. Cyclists, pedestrians, motorcycle riders, RVs, campers, trucks pulling boats and all those types of things. So different traffic patterns. In the wintertime, you have fewer vulnerable road users on the roadway, fewer cars and traffic and those types of things, because if you get the least bit of snow on the roadways, people are like freaking out. And they're going to stay home. They're not going to be driving. Turning lanes, looking for rubberneckers. If you have emergency vehicles on the roadway, know that traffic on the roadway in the vicinity of the emergency vehicles is going to be slowing down. If a police officer has a car pulled over, it's going to be causing traffic to slow down in that vicinity on the roadways. So know the characteristics of other vehicles on the roadway and know how traffic is going to change as the seasons change when you're driving. Interpret the actions of road users, looking farther down the road, figuring out traffic patterns, interpreting the actions of individual road users. And here we go with the zipper merging. And yes, there is some research that suggests, and I have been trying to track down this Minnesota traffic study that's been done, but it's like, oh, the Minnesota traffic study, and then they link to something else, and it's this person, and then another person saying, and another person saying. I can never really figure out or get a hold of the Minnesota traffic study that was done there. It's kind of like going down a rabbit hole when you start trying to figure out all the zipper merging and whatnot. But I'm still very much of the opinion, and I have not been convinced otherwise professionally, to change my opinion about zipper merging. And first and foremost, it's just that you are giving up space and you are trusting other drivers to do the right thing. And as we know, other drivers don't always do the right things. Maintaining minimum safe distance around your vehicle, in front of your vehicle, and doing the shoulder checking, ABS, always be scanning. All right, MIT, mapping intersections, tracking road users. More than 40% of crashes happen at intersections. So as you're approaching intersections, map the intersection, track road users. As I was talking about earlier with cyclists, you're coming up to the intersection, you're doing your shoulder checks, you locate the cyclist, you get up to the intersection, you've passed the cyclist, and then you get to the intersection and you're like, okay, where did the cyclist go? What is he or she doing on the bicycle? And so then you sit in the intersection and you wait for the cyclist to go past to keep both yourself safe and the cyclist on the roadway. All these cautionary signs in the image here will help you to locate intersections. And don't just think of intersections as conventional intersections, Y intersections, T intersections, roundabouts, okay? On-ramps, off-ramps, on interstates, merge lanes, these are all intersection points. These are all points where you could potentially intersect with other vehicles. In terms of advanced defensive driving skills, if you come up and there's a merge lane and there is a risk of you being involved in a sideswipe crash, but you could avoid it by veering into the other lane of oncoming traffic, don't do it. Okay, if you have a choice between a sideswipe crash and a head-on crash, pick the sideswipe crash every time to keep yourself safe when you're driving. You will probably survive a sideswipe crash. It's probably going to be just property damage unless you lose control of your vehicle and drive into a wall or whatnot. But if you're involved in a head-on crash, it's not likely that you are going to walk away from that unscathed. You're probably going to sustain major injuries in terms of a head-on collision. So know that in terms of keeping yourself safe at intersections, merge points, and other choke points along the roadway. Good luck on your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer.